Hi everyone, welcome back to Atrium Research's YouTube channel. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Peter Gleeson and Heman Wong, the chairman and CFO of BQE Water. BQE trades on the TSX Venture under the symbol BQE. We've been covering the story for a couple of years now, so I encourage investors to either go check out our research on our website or go look at our last video we did with management that was more of an overview. So today will mostly serve as an update. We'll go through some questions. So thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you for inviting us, Nicholas.
Thank you, Nick.
Awesome. So I think to start it off, Heman, if you could tell us a bit about the Q2 financials that came out recently, and then we'll get into some questions.
Sure. Yeah, I think with the Q2 financials, the biggest, headline or the biggest difference is our total revenues. We're at 18.7 million versus 5.9 year to date for 6 months compared to last year. Mainly just want to focus on the two things. One is recurring revenues and technical services revenue. Our recurring revenues, our operation revenue, it's a decrease of 1.2 million, and mainly as we explained, we did not have our Minto contract did not renew, and there's also a restructure of our American Southwest contract as well. That said, we did increase our technical services mainly for two main projects. So this is our work for an Eagle mine and also for the Yukon project. Now, our Eagle mine work, for all intents and purposes, it is operational revenue. But because it is not recurring, that's why we're putting into the technical services bucket to keep it apples to apples. But for those two technical services for the first half of the year, they made up of 12 million. So out of our technical services of 18.7, 12 million is for these two projects in the Yukon. So our work in the Eagle mine, we are supporting that site, discharging water, treating water, and roughly I would say 60% of that 12 million. And then the other scope is ERDC. So this is we're supplying equipment. So a lot of that value is on equipment supply. So that's why together it's I would say more of a sudden spike for that extra 12 million. Yeah, so those are the two things I want to highlight looking at the quarter.
If I could, Nick, and just a little bit of colour on the things Heman mentioned, quite rightly so, as a company, we decided that even though the Eagle fees are operating, because they're short term, we left them in technical services. But if you look at the second quarter figures, if you'd have actually included Eagle into operating, it'd have been over 2 million in the other column. And the South American contract that went down, it went down because the contract was ending in the middle of 26, and we actually renegotiated and have actually took a longer extension for 7 years rather than the contract ending. So, there is pluses and minuses there, and there's always a point where you have to renegotiate anyway with miners. And it's, in a way, the positive out of it is the miner still saw that they needed our technical expertise, even with their operators. So.
Got it. Okay. And then on the technical services growth, what's been driving that? Is that really just the mining cycles been starting to do well and companies need more services, or is there something else at play?
Oh, I think for both of those projects, the mining customer has a need, and then we are the solution. We know how to deal with the problem, and I think the question that is on investors' mind is, will these technical services translate to something else, right? And I know it is a indicator. We are continuing to work with both of these sites. As of today, there's nothing signed, but there is more scope that will potentially lead to more revenue or even recurring revenue.
Yeah. But we're seeing a sea change as well, Nick, in the perception of BQE. In other words, these things that are coming along are bigger and better. People are saying these guys are the experts. Whereas if you looked at us a few years ago, it may not have been that BQE would have got the call. But today, these kind of things, we're getting a call. And obviously, the Eagle one, for anybody that doesn't know, massive heat bleach disaster in the Yukon, dealt with over the winter, done very quickly by our team. So not only for investors, we always say the IR about that may not attract investors as much, but the industry has taken notice of it. The industry is like, oh my God, these guys dealt with that so quickly.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, having your guys' name on that, I'm sure will reap
Yeah.
benefits in the future.
Sure.
Okay. And then shifting to the operating contracts, it's usually 5 years or longer. How do you guys create that stickiness for renewals and making sure that, you can retain these clients into the long term?
Well, first off, I think anybody can look at the ones that have been renewed. We do that by obviously doing a good job for the miner, and the miner seeing that not only we create value, but we mitigate the risk for them. When you look at any other engineering group that might build a wastewater plant, they give it to the miner puts in their operators, who, no disrespect to operators, but normally 2 arms, 2 legs and a blue boiler suit, and that's an operator. But we're always evaluating, looking for ways to optimize what's happening on site, and every site we're at, we do that. But still, if you asked us who our greatest competition is, we'd say the miner themselves, because they always think they can do it. So we're looking at ways to make ourselves even stickier. And even stickier might be looking at, we will not be using our own money, but there's projects out there that will possibly be financed by an outside financier who we've already had some approach us because they've now seen what we've done and saying, can we finance them projects? Can you get us into a project and we finance it? Which would obviously make us a hell of a lot stickier, because in effect we would then be working for the owner of the wastewater plant, who is not in the industry and doesn't believe they could do it. It'd just be a financial company. The other way is in the partnerships with the First Nations that we're getting. We're very much, from day one, with all the partnerships we've built, we don't just write them a check and go away. We want to educate them. We want their youngsters. We want their people. We want them to understand. But there's also some First Nations groups, Nicholas, that have money. And they want to invest on these sites, but they can't find a way in. Well, their way in might be part ownership of some of the equipment and whatever. I'm not saying anything like that is happening tomorrow, but we're always looking to make ourselves even stickier if we can on site, and the intention is to be like Raglan, to be there for 20 some years. The ownership of Raglan, Extra, and such, Glencore, some of the biggest players in the world have made that decision. No, these guys know what they're doing. Just leave them alone. Every 3 years they renew us.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, yeah, that's a good case study, and yeah, you guys have the optionality to kind of go in different directions.
Yeah.
Okay. And then another good announcement you guys had last month was about the aquatic toxicology expansion. Tell us more about the rationale, why you guys are making that investment, and when should we start to see some impacts?
If anybody's been watching us for the last 18 months, 2 years, one of the things we talked about with is growing the company, not standing still. And one of the things we look at is obviously M&A, and what areas were there for M&A. And the 2 areas we identified was aquatic toxicology and disciplined engineering. We looked at a couple of aquatic toxicology companies and they just didn't suit for different reasons. So this opportunity came along, which we're building internally with, some of the, certainly in Canada, considered the premier minds on the subject matter. What it does for us is it gets us into projects earlier, Nicholas. That's the first thing. It also gets us into projects that we may never have got into, because somebody has a disaster or is killing fish or doing whatever, a problem with the regulators, they call in the aquatic toxicology guys, and they come in and say, what's causing the problem? But they don't build the answer. These are normally smaller organisations that do that. So in business development, that gives us more opportunities. And it gives us the opportunity to offer something that's never been offered in the industry, is a toxicology, toxic guarantee, sorry. Basically what happens today is we give a performance guarantee, and our performance guarantee is around the particular contaminant we're dealing with. At the end of the pipe, we will have dealt with the selenium or the sulfate or the whatever it might be. And the regulations will say that, so that's why they want a performance guarantee around that. But that doesn't always guarantee that it won't be toxic by the time it gets to the water, because there's often other contaminants are in it. So we'll have the opportunity to give a toxicology, a toxicity guarantee as well, if the customer's willing to pay for it. That again keeps us in longer, auditing the site for longer, offering another service. These are all things. But we're not going to become a toxicology lab that does $400 to $600 tests for all and everybody. This is about BD for us. So we don't expect to see a massive revenue from toxicology itself. We expect to see a lot of BD, business development, from the toxicology though. So it's perfect linear for what we do, just getting us in earlier.
Perfect. Okay. No, it's long-term thinking, and I think that's why a lot of people have invested in BQE or following you guys.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could stay with that theme actually with allocating cash. 14 million or almost 14 million in Q2. How do you think about allocating that, buying back stock, looking at M&A? What's on your guys' mind?
Yeah. We've had a buyback in for a couple of years now. We get next to nothing, Nicholas. It just they're not willing to sell. You can see it trades within a small area and as not massive volumes. We do look at everything, and obviously I can go down the list for us, but we think the best value for shareholders at the moment would be if we can do the right kind of M&A. So basically in M&A, the other part that I alluded to earlier was that disciplined engineering. The disciplined engineering is going to cost more than the aquatic toxicology is going to cost. And why we say that is because when we go in to build a wastewater plant, we do the disciplined engineering on that process, but we don't do the pipes, pumps, concrete, electrics, whatever. So other engineering groups have to come in alongside us, either chosen by the miner, or we bring along another engineering group to do that part of the disciplined engineering. So we can see how much money is being given away because of our expertise.
Mm-hmm.
And there's nothing wrong with the other companies that do it, but it's a very obvious one. So again, linear to what we do, not reinventing the wheel, but it's an opportunity for us to take it. But we'd only be looking, we have looked at a couple of companies where Heman, David and I have decided that we're going to work with someone first to see if they fit our culture, the way they work and whatever. But to bring in a disciplined engineering group that's already cash flow positive in this space, ideally in Canada, but maybe in North America might be it. But they're probably going to be an organisation that's going to be 20, 25 people, maybe 30 people. So that's going to cost something, Nicholas. So that's what we're looking at. That's today. And, as, people talk about dividends and that, I just don't think we're at the right time for dividends. But it's always on the cards. So dividends come along when we have enough recurring revenue that we don't have to worry about not stopping dividends or not increasing dividends. Once we start them, we want to keep doing them, and we want to keep doing them, with safety margin. So it's I know a lot of shareholders think about that, and maybe just putting that message out will help them understand why we're not doing it today.
Okay, good. Yeah, no, that's exciting. I mean, I think there's definitely some things on the table for you guys, and if you put that cash to good use, then it boosts up the growth.
It's you can see, we're not going to raise funds unnecessarily. We're not going to dilute shareholders. We haven't. If you look back at history, we haven't done it. We're all shareholders. All the senior people that any shareholder might talk to are shareholders themselves. Roughly 58% of the company is held inside, with 3 major shareholders and the management group. So there won't be any unnecessary dilution. And I don't see any need for any at the moment, unless there was an opportunity that we just couldn't refuse.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And I'm sure you guys could take on some debt as well if you really needed to.
Absolutely. If you look at our financials, and Heman can tell you, basically the debt that shows there is the rent for the next 9 years on where we're at, and a small amount of government non-interest bearing debt, which actually we're earning money on at the moment. So.
Exactly. Got it. Okay. And then just a last question here, more of a general question. How are you guys taking advantage of the current mining cycle? Seems like a lot more projects are getting financed or advancing through the process. So what does the pipeline look like, and how are you guys playing the cycle?
We're seeing a heavier workload. We're bringing on people, Nicholas. We're in the middle now of strategically looking at us. We've climbed to over 100 people, and we understand that from the entrepreneurial type cycle that's taken us to 100 people, where everybody's rolled their sleeves up and done what needed doing, we now need more structure in our leadership in the company, understanding who our leadership is, what the holes are in our leadership, and that may mean that some people in leadership roles that have grown within the company, because most of our senior people are still there since David Heman and I took over this, so they've been there for 10 years. The natural thing when you're a smaller company is the senior people continue being senior people, but they may not be leaders. They may be technical expertise. And we're looking at things like that now, and the whole senior team is involved in this, understanding that structurally we have to move to the next level now. But we are seeing, so in answer to your question, we're seeing a lot more work come in the door. We're seeing all of our team extremely busy. So yes, we're seeing a reflection on the whole mining market now. And, we believe the cycle's here to stay. I can't see any reason it isn't. We intend taking advantage of it, Nicholas. But to reverse the trend as well, even when we was smaller, going back 4 or 5 years now to COVID, the great thing about us is, yes, we're going to take advantage of the upswing, but when there was a downswing with mines getting put on care and maintenance during COVID and things like that, we quite often were the only ones left on site that were actually working, because the water doesn't stop, especially in a place like Canada where precipitation and things like that and snow melt and whatever is continuing. So,
yeah, the long-term track record, I think we talked about it in the last note, really shows with that trend. So amazing. Okay, well, those are all the questions I had. Thanks for walking us through the updates and the story, and we look forward to see some of the new press releases that come out in the quarters that are coming out. And I wish you guys the best of luck over the next couple months.
Thank you, Nick. And I will say to anybody who's interested in our story or talks to you guys, feel free to call us up. We're not some far away whatever that says, you can talk to me, you can talk to Heman, you can talk to David. And if one of us isn't here, we'll push you to the other one to try and get you answers. So
amazing. Yep, these guys are super responsive. And if you guys haven't seen our research on Atrium, you can all check it out on our website at atriumresearch.ca and get up to speed with the company. And again, Peter, Heman, thanks for the time.
thank
you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, guys. Have a good one.